Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Does my microphone work? Yep, I think it works. Took a very small loss on that one. That was almost break even. All right, we are getting a delta squeeze set up here. So I jumped back in a short. Is anybody here? Can anybody hear me? This is my first time streaming, so I'm just trying to test out the software and see how all of this works. It's been pretty choppy today, fairly sideways and choppy. So I've been focusing more on trying to get the streaming software up and running and less on trading. But I've been dabbling here, jumping in and out of stuff. Not a great day though, overall. And here's a good example of some chop. You see the delta is getting very spotty. When it's thin and spotty like that, those are not ideal trading conditions. That is chop. So ideally, I should probably just walk away today, but I wanted to test out this streaming software. Hey, PJ, how you doing? Good to know that you can hear me. My microphone's working. All right, looks like I'm going to have to exit this trade in a loss here, because we ticked up from the green zone and it was against me. So looks like lost about 4 points on that one. Now, when I typically trade, I have a lot of break-evens and tiny small losses, but my wins are usually pretty big. So at the end of the day, it's the total number of points that really matters. And like I said, today just isn't really a great day for trading. On the higher time frames, we have some disagreement here. So I guess it's more neutral on the 1 hour. The 15-minute is bearish because the delta's under the confirmation line. We got that negative slope. The 5-minute is bullish. We have a positive slope on the 5-minute. So anytime they're in disagreement, you'll end up usually seeing some chop on the lower time frame on the 1 minute. So that's exactly what we're seeing here. Now I could have went long there and flipped, but not really liking the chop signals that we keep seeing here. So not sure how many trades I'm actually going to try to jump into today. So I just wanted to test out the streaming software. Sounds good. So PJ, where are you located at? Florida. I'm in Minnesota. I'm in Stillwater, Minnesota, right outside Minneapolis, St. Paul. We go to the 15-minute chart. You see that we got an order block up here that's been kind of holding us down, but it's touched it. It's like this is a second touch. Let's go to the 5-minute. Yep, we've touched it twice. We might break through it here. Back to the 1-minute. But until we break through it, I'm still going to be looking for a short here. Although the delta, see how it's ramping up here? It's getting more strength, more momentum. So that definitely favors the bulls. But then you go back to the 15-minute here, and the signal line is maxed out on the top there in that upper power zone. Sounds good. Well, thanks for stopping in, PJ. Glad you liked the playbook. It's like price wants to pop through that order block up there. The delta strength is still pretty strong, so it looks halfway decent for a long here, but I'm going to wait for my normal setups. Delta strength is just getting stronger and stronger. Say the delta, I'm talking about that right there. It's getting thicker and thicker. That is the strength. Approaching previous day high. Five-minute is looking even more bullish. 15 minutes trying to turn around, but technically it's still bearish. It's under that confirmation line. Well, we just took out the previous day high. Yeah, I should have taken that signal from the green zone here. I'm still worried about getting my streaming software up and running, but had I taken that, I would have been up about 31 points right now. Well, so far, this is looking like the best move of the day. We've just been chopping sideways this whole time till now. Let's check out Tesla. Yeah, Tesla's running good. Looks like Bitcoin is just hit 77,000. Hey, quiet down now. Right. Delta's starting to get a negative slope to it. So if this delta can maintain this negative slope and then start to turn negative, and we get the signal to go up and then tick down like this. Up. That is what I will be looking for to go short. Hey, Jwaz is here. Yeah, the dog sees a trade forming. That delta is still looking pretty strong though, so you don't want to trade against a strong delta, that's for sure. Now, technically, you could go long here on a bull flag breakout because the delta is still strong. It ticks up. You have your flagpole. You got your flag. You got your... What I don't like about this is see how steep that flag is? I prefer to see it more at like a 45-degree angle. So I did not enter long there. Still might work out, but just not an ideal setup for me. Now what we might see is more of a consolidation, and then we might get more of our 45-degree downslope here for a bull flag. Something to keep an eye on. But you want to see that delta maintain some bullish strength, and then you want to see it tick up. But in order for us to go short here, we still need to see a negative slope on the delta. And you want to see it tapering or turning negative with the signal line ticking down below it. See, we're ticking down below right now, but there's no negative slope to it, so it doesn't count. I mean, there is maybe just a tiny bit, but it's more flat, so it's not a good setup. What we should be looking for instead is a long here, until it can prove that it's actually going to want to go short. Cumulative Delta is the only indicator I use from Z. Hoping he releases a payment plan on Delta alone. Yeah, it's definitely my favorite indicator of Zeiyerman's. He's got a lot of good ones. But there's something about this indicator that just it just kind of jives with me. It's on my wavelength. So all right, Delta is starting to turn negative here, but we still don't really have that much of a negative slope, so I still don't really trust it. Starting to get more of a negative slope now. If you had to go short here, the safer entry is to enter on the 8 SMA. You know, I actually might try that right here. That's all in the playbook, using the 8 SMA for better entries. And that way, if it ends up being a loser, it typically ends up being a small loss instead of a, you know, I could have entered on the close of this other candle, but here I save a little bit by waiting for it to touch that 8 SMA. What you risk by doing that is you can miss the trade. It's more of a passive entry instead of an aggressive entry. Gold should go down now with Trump. Yeah, we'll see. I'll see. Looks like I might end up missing this one because I chose the 8 instead of just entering right on the signal. But the entry, see, it was right here, but there still wasn't much of a negative slope, so I just didn't really like that setup. But if I would have taken that entry is right here. And so, I mean, right now you'd be up over 15 points had I taken it. Yeah, turns out that would have been a good trade. I missed it, though. You can't get them all. Yeah, if that would have just played out a little bit differently there, I would have entered on that one. The Delta's looking really nice now. It's getting some strength to the downside. You know, looking back, if you take that high there and here, I mean, it does have a negative slope. It's not much of a negative slope, but I did have one. So it did satisfy the criteria. So how many people do we have here? Looks like 5 people. I wonder how many are from the Zeiierman group. Or how many randoms we got off the internet. Yeah, if anybody here is not subscribed, please subscribe. We're going to start doing more of these live streams, trading the cumulative delta and the setups that are in the playbook. And if you're not familiar with the playbook, the link's at the top there. Go there in your browser, download it for free. We are trading the Cumulative Delta indicator, which is a Zeiierman indicator. Hey, Jay Torres trades from the Z Group. Yeah, we're definitely going to, I think, start doing more of these. It'd be kind of nice to trade with other people that are looking for the same setups. So usually I just do all this by myself, and as you all probably know, it can get a little lonely trading by yourself. So it'd be kind of fun if we could get a group of people together doing this. Palami, Z Group. Awesome. I'm assuming you guys already had a chance to download the playbook and check it out. All right, we're getting a tick up from the lower power zone here, but we got to be careful because the delta is now underneath the confirmation line, so technically the bears are in control. But if we are going to go long, what we want to see is we want to see that delta really start to taper. Let's see if I can show that a little bit easier here. So that might be easier for you to see, but we don't want to see the delta gaining strength. We want to see it tapering down, showing us that the bulls are starting to step in. You want to see it tapering or positive. And it is tapering a little bit. I prefer if it tapers more than that, but I think I'm going to go ahead and give this one a shot. All right, I am long. From 240.75. Now you can really see the delta starting to taper down. It tells you that all the momentum and strength is going away. Bulls are starting to take over. Now it's a balance, right? Like everything's a balancing act. So, you know, you got the delta tapering, which is in the favor of the bulls, but you got the delta underneath the confirmation line, which is in the favor of the bears. So when you're making these decisions on whether to jump into a trade, you have to kind of balance all of that out. But in this case, when you're ticking up from a power zone and the delta is in the upper half, that tells you that it's been bullish fairly recently. As long as it's in the upper half, it has to be pretty recent. And so what you want to see is you want to see it taper down there if it's the first time that it crossed under that confirmation line. As you can see, we're getting a nice little pop here. But you always want, anytime the delta goes under the confirmation line, you want to keep your eye out for a short setup. And if a short setup presents itself, then you definitely want to exit out of your long position. And depending on the setup, you might want to actually flip short at that point. At least that's what I do. Back to retesting the previous day high. So if a short setup was going to set itself up, it would probably be around here. So what we'd like to see is we would like to see this really push through and get above that trend line. I'm going to go ahead and move my stop to break even. Now this is a really good sign that the delta is regaining a positive slope here. That's what we want to see. However, we got to keep in mind that the bears are still in control. So we are ticking down from the upper red zone, so looks like I'm going to have to exit here and flip. So I ended up getting, looks like 7 ticks on that one. And then I flipped short. So I'm short from 242. So 7 ticks, 1.75 points. Go ahead and add that. Now we have to keep an eye on the delta here. Looks like we're starting to see chop come back. Anytime it's thin and spotty and oscillating from negative to positive, that is your chop signal, which you typically want to stay away from when it's doing that for an extended period of time. But sometimes it has to do that at the beginning of a move. So first time I see it, I'll still take the entry, but if it starts to go extended, that's when you want to step away. Yeah, so the bulls are stepping back in here. So see, we're getting more Strength in favor of the bulls. We're getting a higher low in the green zone. So if I have to pull the plug here, it'll be another, looks like, small, tiny loss. And that's typically how I trade. I have a lot of small, tiny losses. But the idea is to keep your winners bigger than your losers, so. And looks like I'm going to flip again here. And I am long again from 248.25. Now, this is where if we start seeing this chop continue, then I will not flip again. I will just stay out. And the reason why we can go long here is because we got a higher low in the green zone. The delta is positive, and the delta still has this overall positive slope to it. So it is under the confirmation line, which makes it a little bit risky, which also is probably the reason why we were a little choppy right there. We want to see this delta break outside of my chop box. And that's typically when the chop starts to disappear. And it goes back into momentum move. If we look at our higher time frames, the 15-minute has been bearish this whole time. It's been under the confirmation line. However, it did turn here, and it looks like it's about to close above that confirmation line. So the 15 is, I guess, what I would consider to be more neutral right now, and it's about to turn bullish. So I'll go ahead and flip that to neutral. The hourly, it barely closed under the confirmation line, and now it looks like it's starting to go back up. So I think I would actually flip the hourly to bullish. And of course, the 5-minute is still bullish because the delta is above that confirmation line. Now, if we could just get the 1 back above and go on a little run here, that would be ideal. Been going through the playbook the last couple of weeks. 10 out of 10. Awesome. Curious if anybody's made it all the way through that yet. I know it's not a huge book or anything, but it's definitely something that I think if you haven't been watching this for hours and hours every day like I have, you'll probably have to use it more as of a reference book and keep referring back to it. Okay, we are getting a tick down from the upper power zone, so we got to keep an eye on that. It also is rejecting off that trend line. So we have a decision. We either exit or we move our stop to break even. I think well, it didn't tick down yet. It almost did. So on this candle, we'll see if this closes as a tick down. See how the delta is starting to thin out again and get weak? Now see, the delta closed under the confirmation line. So this from the power zone, that's a short. If the delta starts to thin out or go negative when we tick down from the power zone, that's when we definitely want to exit the long and go short. We just need to start getting some momentum in some of these moves. When it's trading sideways like this, and there's no momentum, it's really hard to capitalize on momentum when there is none. Okay, so we did tick down there, so I moved my stop to break even. So we really want to see this candle get back above that trend line and tick up. And it just took me out. Break even. But like I was saying before, that's actually a short setup right there. I didn't take it because I was in that long, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a short entry on the 8. Notice on the 5, we're now ticking down. So the 5, you can see the delta now has this negative slope to it. So that's the first requirement to a delta squeeze. And you want it to tick up and tick down. Now I prefer it to come closer to the delta before it ticks down. But it's already starting to tick down there on the 5. So we'll see if we can get picked up for a short here. Because what you want to do is you want the 1 to trigger the 5, and you want the 5 to trigger the 15. And see that the 15, it already ticked down from this upper power zone up there. So as long as it stays under that confirmation line, technically that's still bearish. It's still short. And the 1 hour, if it ticks down up here, that's a delta squeeze on the 1 hour, so that can easily turn bearish pretty quickly. We did get picked up on the 8, so we're in right here at 249.50. Hopefully there's some follow through, but we still have to keep an eye on this chop. See, the delta is really thin. That's dangerous. Thin deltas are dangerous. It's typically when you want to walk away. Currently on page 55, huh? Awesome. Yeah, you guys will have to let me know if anything is not clear, or if you think I can explain something better, or if you have any suggestions for what could be added to the playbook. All right, we're ticking up now. So yeah, this chop is just continuing. Might give it one more chance here. We really want it to stay underneath that 8. Nope, it closed with a tick up, so small loss. There just is no follow through. Chop City right now. Thin, spotty deltas. So the delta still is weak. This could trigger a lower high right here. Lower high with a weak delta under the confirmation line is technically a short, but anytime it's thin and spotty like this, you're always kind of playing with fire. You know, this time of day trading is not all that great. Best moves are usually in the morning, but this morning wasn't all that great either. It was just sideways. Should I give it one more shot? I think I'm going to. We got a lower high that just printed. We have a weak delta. It's under the confirmation line. Technically, that's a short entry. $246.25. Just a little early on the other ones. Hopefully we get some follow through on this one. Come on. The 5-minute is still in play for short. The 15 doesn't really know what it's doing. We could trigger a short on the hourly still. All things we want to keep an eye on. But yeah, we got that lower high here. This delta, we want to see it turn over. We want to see this start to get that negative slope to that delta. And that will put things in our favor. But if we tick up here and I'm underwater, I think I'm done. All right, we're getting a little bit more strength to the downside. The delta candle's getting thicker. You want to see every candle get a little bit thicker, a little bit more, a little bit more. Can you guys see that okay with this view? Can you see the delta candles, or is it really hard to see? Is it better if I change my view to this? It's easier to see, but then you lose some of the price action unless I move that down. Original view is fine? Okay. I'll go back there. Yeah, this might just want to consolidate and then eventually break that trend line. Signal's now in the green zone and ticking up. If it does that when I'm underwater, I'm pulling the plug. Yeah, I think it's going to want to make a run for it to the upside here. All right, I am out. A lot of these tiny losses can add up quick, so I want to be careful with that. And that is not a long, I mean, it did technically tick up from the green zone, but with the delta thin and chopping and spotty like that, and it's still under the confirmation line, it still has a negative slope to it. It's just not an ideal long. I mean, it still says short all over it. I think we just might be a little early. There's our lower high tick down again under that delta. And in the playbook, if you read the section on chop, I talk about if you do want to enter a trade, the only side that you should enter on is the side where, like in this case, the delta is under the confirmation line. So you should only enter a short in that case. You should only enter it from the red zone on a lower high. I mean, that'll give you the highest probability. But it still is kind of a crappy setup. So if you have to trade it, that's like right now, how it's ticking down to lower high, that's the entry right there. So if you want to trade more aggressively, that's the one to take. But the odds still aren't all that great. I mean, you really want to be playing off of more, momentum moves. Not this little, consolidating choppy action. I went ahead and took more of a aggressive move right there. So I actually am short, but I've tried this 1, 2, 3 times. This is number 4. Hopefully we get one here. No, the chop continues. Okay, I lied. I said I was going to be done after that one, and I jumped back in. And that is how you blow up accounts really quick. Gotta stick to your rules. Another loss there. Let's check out Bitcoin. See how it's doing. $77K. It's looking pretty good. ADA was looking really good too. And Matic's on fire. I don't know how many of you guys are trading crypto. Everything's, see these deltas over here? How they're gaining momentum, gaining strength, how the candles are getting fatter, they're getting bigger and bigger. You want to be in those moves. Yep, new all-time high. Well, NQ isn't looking so hot. It did break this trend line, so we could get a nice little push to the upside, but the delta is regaining more of what I guess you'd say normal strength. But that little chop right there was painful. So I think I might be done. Unless I see something that really looks good. The ADX? Yeah. Yeah, I watched that video that you sent over. But yeah, I'd like for you to show me that again. I used to use the ADX a long time ago. And, you know, it's like here. The ADX, I found it does help, but I still feel like this, to me, is better. It's like, you know, I knew that we were in a chop scenario this whole time. I made the decision to keep entering, which, you know, I knew going into it that's more of an aggressive decision to keep entering there. But if I really wanted to play it safe, I just wouldn't have entered any trades here. I think the Cumulative Delta by itself is a great chop indicator. As long as you know to follow what it's telling you, right? Yeah, sounds good. All right, we're ticking down from a power zone now. So even though we broke that trend line, we'll see what it wants to do here. Might just want to retest and go. We'll see. Delta's tapering down. It's ticking down from that power zone. Technically, that's a short. But after that chop, I don't trust anything. The other thing that we need to look at is, are we still in the market condition that we thought we were in? I mean, this is really ugly because, I mean, it's mostly going sideways most of the day. Like here, confirmation line was going straight down the center. So you could have played those power zones and did all right. And but still just more rangy action right here. And then you start to get a little bit of a, uptrend here. But then it just dies off in this chop. So are you in a sustained uptrend? I wouldn't say you are. I mean, the delta and the confirmation line have to be up there in the power zone in order to say that you're in a sustained uptrend, according to the rules in the playbook, at least. And so I would say you're in a sustained uptrend. You're just in a lot of sideways, rangy chop action. And when it's doing that, then playing those power zones is going to be your best bet. All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for sending that over. I'll definitely check it out later. But yeah, when you're ranging anything in the middle here, it's gonna, the probability of those entries are going to be less than your power zone entries. So like here's a power zone entry. Here's a power zone entry. Now that one barely had any downside momentum. This one had more upside to it. But typically you get more than that. This is just really flat. It's hard to make money when things are flat. There's our thin, spotty, choppy delta again. Well, we might not see any better price action until power hour, and I'm going to have to take off here pretty soon. There's our delta squeeze setup setting up again. But in this chop, I mean, when you have, you know, like one fail here, you can't just keep taking them, because it could do this chop action for a long time. The 15 is technically above the confirmation line, so I can flip this to bullish. So we are in full bull right now. The price just isn't going anywhere. The delta is starting to gain a little bit more momentum now to the upside. It's getting thicker. It was a second ago. So maybe it'll end up pushing through. If it could push through and clear this previous high, it might start running. So yeah, this is my first time streaming. Still trying to get handle on this streaming software. Trying to figure out how it all works. It's kind of weird talking to yourself. I don't normally talk to myself when I trade. Be nice if there was some other voices in here. And is it too quiet? Like, normally I have like a video on or music playing or something. Is it better to have music playing when you're streaming? Or do people prefer peace and quiet? Do you prefer silence? That Delta is starting to perk up a little bit. Starting to think it wants to take out that high. What about you guys? Looks like it's gearing up for it. Delta's getting thicker. I actually just printed some bearish divergence. So we got higher highs on price. We got a lower high on the signal. And it did not clear that high, so I don't know. This could start to fall apart. Thanks, Garrett. Yeah, I was wondering about the quality and all of that. I was working on, there's a bunch of different, I'm using a software called OBS. There's a bunch of different settings in there for like bit rate and like the resolution. And I mean, there's tons of stuff in there. I was playing around with a bunch of different settings. So the first time I tried to run a test, I don't think it looked very good at all. It was kind of blurry. So I went back and I tried changing some things. And I thought it looked pretty good from what I can see. I'm not really sure what you guys are seeing, but yeah, hopefully it looks pretty good. Yeah, that bearish divergence might end up playing out here. Delta is starting to turn negative again. Might roll over. Yeah, it never did take out that high, so I could see this falling apart here. But yeah, anytime you see the delta like so indecisive, going sideways, flat, spotty, thin, it's just it's dangerous territory. You're better off walking away and coming back the next day during the open or after the open. It's just indecisive. Yeah, that delta's rolling over. It's gaining momentum. So technically the entry for this, had I taken it, was right here. The entry was this lower high when it printed this bearish divergence, higher high on price, lower high on the signal. The signal was tapering at that point. That's what I usually look for. If I wouldn't have had all this chop back here, I would have entered on that. But you know, when it's chopping, you gotta know when to walk away and stop taking trades. So I didn't take that one. But it can't chop forever. Eventually it breaks out of the chop and starts moving again. Yeah, I think she's rolling over. Well, we finally got a little bit of decent movement back. So at least we had one somewhat consistent period here where the delta was going one direction. So it might be safe to start entering on signals again. See the delta, it's growing. Those candle sizes are getting bigger and bigger to the downside, so we'll see if it starts to taper here. We're starting to tick up from the lower power zone. If it really starts to taper, I might go long. See what's going on the higher time frames. So on the 5 minute, it's finally starting to turn negative. We're getting a lower high on the 15 and the delta is tapering. So technically the 1 could trigger the 5, which could trigger the 15, and then the hourly might get a delta squeeze out of the hourly here. And that's typically how you want to do it. You want the 1 to trigger the 5, to trigger the 15, to trigger the hourly, and that's how you get the really big moves. So if I wanted to jump into a short and try to trigger all that, I would have to wait for the signal line to pull up and tick back down underneath the delta. And then you want to see the delta maintain this negative slope. Not just maintain a negative slope, but you want to see those delta candles increase in momentum and start to get thicker and thicker. You don't want to see them taper and thin out for a short. For a long, you do want to see them taper. But I think we could probably rule out the longs for now. Be right back. All right, what'd I miss? Looks like I missed an impulse breakout setup from the playbook. So that would be if I was here, would have been a short right here. So that went 72 ticks, 18 points. And the reason why that is an impulse breakout move is because you have this impulsive move down, you have the delta start to taper, and then see how this next candle right here gets bigger than the tapered candle with this negative slope. And this tick, that combined with this tick down right here, that is your entry for a short. And that one played out pretty nice. I just happened to be gone. And look at now, it's getting a lot of momentum on this last candle here. So we might come down and hit the VWAP. Now, imagine if you actually took this from the original entry, which was this lower high tick down from the power zone. You would have been in right here. And with that momentum, well, if you would have used you go to the exit strategies in the playbook, if you use the delta cross exit strategy, you'd still be in. So you'd be up at least 30 points until this signal closes back above the delta. Now the delta is tapering. However, that still has a pretty aggressive slope down. So I still would not long that. The hourly hasn't triggered yet, but it looks like it might be getting close for triggering a short. If you use the tick up from the power zone exit strategy, you still would have got 19 points out of that first one. Then when it ticks up here, you would have been out here, got another 9.75 points out of that. But if you use the delta cross, you would have got out on this candle right here. So then that trade would have been, well, we'll see where we close. All right, so closed above. If you use that exit strategy, you would have got 28.75 points. But I still think there's a little bit more downside here. This negative slope is pretty aggressive. The Zeiierman Discord in the VIP chat. Zeiierman is exposed on Instagram. First time seeing him. Check their Instagram account. What is that all about? It's like, looks like they have two Zeiierman accounts. Unless one's a fake. All right. Are we missing something here? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew there'd be more downside there. That slope was just too aggressive for it to turn around right there. Plus, I think that hourly wants to get triggered into a short. Just got to be patient. Takes time. Still no real entry for a short, though. So ideally, you see how the signal line is above the delta now? You don't want to short when it's above the delta in the green zone. You can do it when you're having that strong momentum move downward, as long as it's underneath the delta. So like if this would have, like this momentum move up here, it wasn't a huge move, but it was a valid one. But ideally you want to see the signal come up close to the delta, tick down underneath it, and have that delta gaining momentum as that's happening. But once the delta has tapered down, thinned out, and the signal is above it, then it's kind of too late by that point. So at that point, you need to wait for the signal to make it back up into the upper red zone. Ideally, the power zone up on top. And then from there, as long as the delta is still weak and still under the confirmation line, then you can enter short. Until then, the opportunity is more on the long side, but because the delta is so far underneath this confirmation line, any long opportunity is probably going to be pretty short-lived. So you're going to want to scalp it quick if you decide to take anything. So here we're technically getting a delta squeeze. It's ticking up above a positive, well, it's a positive delta, but the delta does not have a positive slope yet. And for it to really be a true squeeze, that the delta slope needs to be positive. So it's a risky one. I would not go long there. So we're just patiently waiting for a short. See the thin and spotty alternating delta down here? That's another chop zone. All right, we are getting a tick down from the red zone now. The delta is still weak. That's what we want to see. It's negative. It means that there's more aggressive sellers than there are aggressive buyers. So this is technically a short setup on this candle close, as long as it still looks like that. That delta is still spotty and choppy though, so hopefully we get a little more follow through here. All right, I am short. From 225.55. All right, see the delta is starting to turn down and it's gaining momentum. Delta candles are getting thicker. That means aggressive sellers are stepping in. That's what we want to see. Now we just need to see some follow through. Hopefully it could put in a decent move here before I got to take off. I got to take off real soon. I got to go pick up the kids from school. So, give me one good trade here before I leave, please. Come on, market. Looks like the market might want to say no. You would think that it would at least come down and touch the VWAP, but we're so close to it. Yeah, that little chop box down there looks like it just wants to continue to chop. See where we close here. All right. It's a tiny loss. 2-point loss. All right, guys, I'm going to call it here. And but yeah, I think I'm going to start doing more of these things if you guys are interested. And probably do some more live streams next week. So yeah, if you're interested, let me know. Let me know in the comments, or if you guys have questions or anything, let me know that too, and I can try to cover those. All right. Well, you guys have a good weekend. Thanks for checking it out. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.